Kai, Shen, and Hui did a research on the effects of location and price estimation. And in their research, what they did was they asked the participants to see a magazine with two lamps on it, which were identical, literally. And they asked them which one they thought was more expensive. Actually, why don't you try it right now? Which one do you think looks or feels more expensive? Which one was it for you? Was it the left one which you thought was more expensive, or was it the right one which you thought was more expensive? 89% of the people who took part in this experiment thought that the right one was more expensive. And that's almost 9 out of 10 people thought the right one was more expensive. And it's pretty obvious as well why. Ever since a childhood, whenever you take something and let's say you want to write from 0 to 1, right? You always start the 0 or the lowest number from the leftmost side, and the higher you go, the right you keep moving towards. So the lower digit is always on the left side, while the higher digit is always on the right side. And since everyone writes from left to right most of the time, the perception of things being more expensive on the right hand side actually is a subconscious belief that most people have. So tomorrow, if you want to make your product perceive more expensive, you can definitely put your product on the right hand side of the physical medium that you're using. Or if you want to seem like you're affordable and cheap in any way, you can put your product on the left hand side. Now it completely depends on what you want to do with your product placement. And it mostly works in physical scenarios only because there's a clear differentiator between the left and the right side on physical mediums. As you can see, the more expensive product, being the BMW, has been placed on the right hand side, and that actually subconsciously communicates it being more expensive than probably the other product on the left hand side. So is your brand one that needs to seem luxurious or affordable? Using this tactic effectively can help you appealing unconsciously to the right target audience. In 2008, Berger and Fitzsimmons did a study where they asked people to choose from multiple products. But before they did that, they asked them to write their name, number, and email ID down on a piece of paper, and the pens were provided by them as well. Now, some of the people were given an orange pen, while the others were given a green pen. After they were done, they were given choices between multiple products to choose from. The result clearly showed that the people who had chosen an orange pen resulted in choosing orange products, and the people who wrote with the green pen resulted in choosing green products. The pen in the research acted as a priming cue. Just like the platforms you use to do your advertisements also act like a priming cue. Now, what that means is when the people were exposed to an orange pen, every concept of orange, every idea, every experience, every product related to orange suddenly became more attractive and desirable. So hence all the orange products seem more relevant in that point in time, and hence made a person choose the orange product instead. Now this was also proved to be correct and accurate while doing advertisements. When a product is presented in a predictive context, for example, a bottle of beer featured in an ad where it shows a man entering a bar, or when it is primed by a related construct, participants develop more favorable attitudes. So how can you apply this principle? Well, first you have to answer what are the core values of your business and what are the means that are congruent to it. For example, a tech company cannot advertise on non-tech platforms because it does not help taking the call to action in any way. Does it make sense for an app developer or an app to advertise on a magazine where they cannot take the call to action in any physical way? It does not. Well, it does make sense for a fashion or a wedding related business to use magazines or things like fashion blogs and fashion related websites or influencers to do their advertisements because people would be looking for them at that place. The key question you need to answer is, where do your customers feel the need of your product the most? And that's where you should be in front of them at that point in time. So I want you to answer this question for yourself. When you go on a website where you want to learn how to build a website like WordPress or anything related to it, you'll soon enough start seeing ads that teach you how to build a blog or teach you something related to website development. What are the physical places where people would feel the need for your product or service the most? And what are the digital websites your customers would go to when they need your product the most? Or what would be the questions your customers would be asking on Google that can be solved by your product? Today, unfortunately, most people have very negative annotations for words like advertisements and selling, because people do not want to be really sold to or advertised or influenced in any way, because they want to be independent of their own buying decision, and that is the reason why they avoid most ads. Now, fortunately, it is not all about advertising today if you want to get your word out there or build a brand. Thanks to the digital age and digital platforms that are available today, we can really communicate well without spending a single penny on advertising. And when customers see that your ad is a paid ad or is a sponsored in any way, it definitely reduces the attention people pay to it and the click through that it receives. So it has become of utmost importance to put content out there that people love and will willingly click on regardless of it's being paid or not paid. For a random subset of users, sponsored links or ad labels were changed to instead read paid advertisements. And when people saw paid advertisements, the concept of paid made them more resistant, and they got 25 to 27% fewer clicks on their advertisements respectively. So your aim as a company should be to make such shareable, relevant, creative, exciting content that people want to actually read and click on. And that's when they will start coming to your page to actually see what you have to share. And the time when you do an ad after that, people will still click on it because they won't care if it's paid or not, because they genuinely care about what you have to share because it's relevant for them. Now, another tip would be not to use things like the right hand column, because that usually indicates that it is a paid part of to advertise on, and it indicates that you're trying to be selly. So just avoid using it. Instead, use things like instant article or videos to do advertisements, because they're much more subtle in that way. But the ultimate aim is to create extremely relevant content that your audience really cares about and is like an impulse decision for them to click on it. Focus on doing things like contests or creating shareable content that where you ask people to comment or like or put on their page, because it's so like relatable to them. Because when people tag people, the sponsored tag actually goes away by itself. So that is another thing you can use for yourself. And here are a few examples of brands that are doing brilliantly with their content. So you can definitely learn a couple of things from them. If you observe Zomato's social media content, they put out very relatable and interactive posts for their followers. For example, they ask people to tag their friends with the cheesiest pickup lines and even make the best of major events taking place at that time. You should avoid paid promotions as much as possible, and the best way to do that is by putting very relatable, awesome content that people will love viewing and sharing. Some brands I recommend for you to check out are AIB, Coke, Red Bull, Budweiser, and Durex. By going through all these examples, I hope that the importance of organic or non-paid ads is well understood by now. It helps in forming a favorable image of your brand in the consumer's mind, which is a priceless asset.